Hey everyone. Hi Libra. Okay, so welcome to Opal Oracle if you're new. And welcome back, of course, if you're returning. Now, I feel like I have something in my teeth. Can you hold on a second? You know? What is that about? Like embarrassment? I guess. Concerned about what the external world thinks a little bit. Could happen. Now, Libra, before we begin, actually, I'd like to say this is right now it's actually a 2-year Opal Oracle 2-year anniversary. It's pretty fascinating to me. So I just want to say thanks for that, whether you've been here since when this channel began or we just found one another right now. I guess happy now, and thank you for, well, just being part of the path. I really appreciate it, and all your support and love, and thanks. And thank yourself, because really you being here and being so kind to me by, or this channel, like putting energy into this channel, it means that you're putting that energy into yourself, It's very empowering. Okay. Now, that's that. Let's see what you got for cards. What you have for cards. Into check. Beautiful. Okay. You're going to feel better soon, okay? Wow. Okay, so I wanted to mention, Virgo has a message for you. They also had lots of 2s and 3s. They actually had 2s and 4s. You have 2s and 3s. I do feel like like with the food and the teeth, right? I sense that there's something where you don't want to make a fool of yourself. Your ego may be picking at you a little bit also about what perfection is. I see that you don't want to disappoint anyone. And you yourself do not wish to be disappointed. Also, for some of you, you're worried about disappointing your father or the father, as in God. You don't want to do that. You're concerned about that. You're concerned also about your heart, Your heart plays a role in this. It's a few days before the eclipse, the full moon, and end of January now. And that eclipse has to do with, your future self will know what that means. I guess you have to ask yourself also what your heart was telling you last March. Okay? Like how your heart was doing last February, and then there's something between February and March. I guess also we could take it as you may. There's something between how your heart and how you will be feeling and what your heart is desiring between February and March. But you should look back also, not to just sort of ponder it for a moment and see how you feel. Maybe even if it's just, let's see here. Let's try to be, I was gonna try to make a mathematical equation about it, but that's not the point, because then we're gonna be analytical about something that needs to be felt. So that's important to know those differences. You have more cups than anything, okay? Now, your present self is actually the King of Cups, which is beautiful to me. The only swords here is the Two of Swords in the future. But the thing is that's not even a card of thinking. It's a card of feeling also. Every card here, pretty much every card here has a lot to do with feeling. So I think some of you are containing a bit about how you feel about a person, because you're trying to, or about like a connection, right? Could be however it is, but it is emotional, right? You're a human. You're trying to figure out, it's like you should be, okay, specifically if you are interested in there's someone in your life that you're trying to, that you are close to, that you want to go to the same level, or to another level, to add more to this, to the situation, then I see that you want to make sure that you're doing it, I heard, the right way, like we talked about earlier. You have to, because see, he's holding also his own cup. And you have to, your present self has to hold your own cup. And ask your heart, you have to ask yourself, I tell Taurus this all the time, but like you look down and you say, how are you, heart? How are you? Then give it a minute or two or three and actually be in there, you know? This is pretty basic, but I do see this. If there are any of you, because this is pretty persuasive. This King of Cups can be Scorpio, but it's he's very romantic, but he doesn't really ever express how he feels when he's not feeling good. Like when he feels romantic and lovey and all this kind of stuff, it's 1000%. But when it comes to how he really feels when you get down to the dirty of it, you know, then no. So, and because he's persuasive, I see that for any of you who are interested in, again, there's some sort of newer situation and or wanting it to go to the next step, I see that you should always be friends with someone first. Okay? Should be friends actually for like well, I heard for some of you, you should be friends with somebody for 3 months. For some of you, you need to at least go on 3 dates before you know, just kind of as friends. Like present it like that, you know? Even if that's, I guess you could work this out in other certain things. Like, I mean, apply it as you may. You don't have any pentacles here. So I mean, the point is that you're trying to figure out who and how you want to work, who and how you're working with yourself. You want to be honest about that. Okay? Your inner child is the Wheel of Fortune, which is awesome. Well, your inner child is saying to you, don't worry. It actually says, and Lorraine, which she hasn't really posted on Opal Oracle for a long time, but she was here in the beginning. But she had mentioned once in the comments, and I found it really fascinating. And thank you for posting what it is you post. It, you know, I read it and respond, and it's important. But she had mentioned that Libra really lacks an ego, you know, just as the sign overall, because you're about the non-self, right? You don't generally put yourself first, whether it's in your relationships or in your friendships or even in your feelings. You don't put your heart first. Usually, well, at very least you used to be, the majority of you, put others before you. But that was, that's not allowed anymore, right? And it's okay to have desires in this life. You're allowed to do that. That doesn't have to do with satisfying someone else. It's about you having a desire for something, right? And you making decisions independently of others, not to exclude anyone by any means, but by viewing it in such a way of like, what would make me happy? Because I obviously know in a way what doesn't make me happy, right? And I think also for a lot of you right now, whether you're involved or not, is your strength is that you are starting to understand that another, especially Libra, the sign of relationships, right? Partnerships, is you have to hold your own cup. That's your present self right now, is you're digging in there, and that's good. That's about integrity, and that's where I think you don't have to worry so much. Like, if you're understanding what I just said, and not that you ultimately mastered it yet, because it's here, so that means you're still working it out and you're still correcting it, right? There's still something in there that's kind of emotionally like confusing, that pulls you a little bit in certain directions still, right? But it's just habitual because you've been going around that wheel for so long. It's like a hamster wheel, and now you're starting to realize, like, I'd say in the last year or so, maybe last 2-3 years, probably solid 2 for most of you, you've realized, you came to realize that you were a rat in a cage. You were the hamster on the wheel, that you were actually a hamster, and that you weren't just on the wheel, but you were in a cage. And so you're like, why am I don't need to be here. This isn't a full life, right? Only doing what other people want to make them happy. That doesn't work. You can't be the hamster on the wheel anymore. So if you're at very least, or got off the wheel and broke the fuck out of that cage, maybe you're in the wild still and you're trying to figure out like where your tribe is and where you're supposed to go and what life is out in the real world. That's okay. I see that your inner child has your back. I see that God has your back, even though I think for a lot of you, you really are concerned about how God feels. And that's okay. Actually, it's really beautiful. I almost want to cry. It's interesting. It's like, but it's not where I'm sad. It's a feeling of, how most people pray, or that people tell people to pray, like when they need help. Like, oh, if you're really stuck, well then pray. But what about praying, and before you start asking for what you want, right? You ask God how he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, how are you, God? How are you, Mother Nature? And then ask if there's anything you can do for them. Maybe that there's something about that. And of course, this could represent another person, because you're also figuring that out, right? Because if you've always been on your scale, right? If you've always been on one side of submitting to others or being passive, or just, again, trying to fulfill what the other desires, and completely forgetting about yourself, then this kind of empowerment will, shift those but we talked about this, I think, uh, not last autumn, but the autumn before, where it was just like being okay with the in-betweens, you know? And so what is that? That's like a year and a half. So maybe you want to take note a little bit of where you've been, what you've, jot down a few things, what it is that you've been through, what it is that you've learned about yourself, you know, the blessings that you've been given. I see that it goes 1, 2, 3. So there's a progression between, I see January, February, March. I also see June here, but that's where the eclipse will come back. Because even if you realize, it is important for you to well, I guess I just keep hearing, ask for what you need. But always in that, after you request what it is that you need, then you ask the other person, whoever that may be, your boss, your lover, whatever, is there anything I can do for you? Right? Because then it's a balance. It's not where someone's just barking at you to fulfill their emotional needs or their needs overall. I see particularly it's very emotional here. But like money can make people emotional, people doing whatever. The point of the story is it's not someone barking at you for you to fulfill their needs, and it's not you barking at someone else for someone to fill your needs. It's about you maturely expressing how it is, like going over how it is that you feel. And regardless of how tightly interwoven or emotional something is, you can keep it steady. And again, request what it is that you desire. And remember to ask what it is you can do for them. Because maybe you don't realize, because there's lots of people who don't express themselves and what it is that they need, particularly emotionally. I think most people absolutely ignore that I'd say a good percentage of the time, Maybe they tell those secrets or those needs to God, but they don't really tell them to other people. And I guess that's also something, if you feel like you don't know how to say what it is that's in your heart to your friends, or you feel like you don't know if your friends would judge you, especially for those of you where your heart's maybe still attached to someone in the past, or to an emotional place that maybe you should, where you'd like to be out of it completely, but there's still like, I just sense that there's consideration here, and that's okay. That's mature to be like, to ask yourself, how you doing? You ended up with the Knight of Cups. The future is the Two of Swords. And so I was wondering about what that was about when you received the Knight of Cups, which now we have the King and the Knight of Cups. I heard this is like when you when you forget all about finding a 4-leaf clover, and then you find like a 5-leaf one, that moon will be healing. I do see for some of you, no, I see for all of you actually. Cool. 6 of Wands, 8 of Cups, Temperance. This moon too, right? Of course, this intention is for February, so there could be maybe between now and the end of February, you really do balance something out. The moon is the mother, but the moon is also your mind. And right now, your body is filled with emotion. But it's not where it's washing over you. It's like kind of like where the tide's coming in softly, like when you go to the sea in the morning, right? It's not the sea in the middle of the afternoon. It's early in the morning. There's just like ripples coming in. So because the emotions are like kind of in a lower space, you're not being fucking bombarded with them. Then take advantage of that time to be able to feel things out. Also, you know, you should find a creative outlet for all these feelings that are coming in during this time. You know, maybe you need to take a little bit more quiet time to yourself, you know, to talk to God. You know, maybe away from your friends. You don't spend so much time with friends. In the future, I see that you'll spend more time with friends. You know, you might be able to also figure out, you know, when we take time alone, that'll also show who our friends are. You know, be able to suss that out. Awesome. All right, well, I love you so much. Well, I already thank you for everything, but I guess I'll thank you again. I actually work with a lot of Libras, and it's wonderful. It's such a blessing, all the folks that, yeah, cool. All the folks that, where we get to ride the Ferris wheel together, you know, for a round or 2 or 3 or what have you. It's really, it's spectacular, you know, and I guess I just want to thank you for letting me be a part of your path. All right. Take care. Peace.